Hey guys, Stephen Bogran here, and today I want to talk about, are you doing too much cardio? So hey everybody, hope you're all having a great day today. Woo, too much cardio. Cardio. I don't fucking know, dude. But let's talk about cardio. Let's talk about kind of what I think about cardio. Let's talk about when to use it, when not to use it. Let's have that little chitty chat. It's really going to be one way. It's going to be talking to you, but it's fine. So let's talk about the idea of too much cardio. So the entire idea of too much cardio, where does that start? Where do we begin? Well, it all begins, in my perspective, at recovery. The answer is quite simple if you're not recovering from your training sessions, right? Now, it might not only be cardio that's the issue, right? Maybe you're overtraining, maybe you need a scheduled deload, maybe you need to rework some of your numbers. Sure, absolutely. All of those things play into it in terms of fatigue and how you're responding to everything. However, at some point, we also want to look at cardiovascular activity as a component of that fatigue. Now, what is fatigue? Fatigue is simply that. It's your body getting fucking tired, your CNS getting tired, and that builds up. So fatigue should be building up throughout a block as we're increasing volume, as we're, doing the right things to create that we're growing muscle, right? To facilitate that. So fatigue is not necessarily a bad thing. However, we have to make sure that we're managing fatigue properly. And I think that's where the idea of like too much cardio comes in, right? Because at some point, fatigue gets high and then we start plateauing or even getting worse and getting into that like overtraining philosophy, right? And so it's something that we just want to be very aware of, and we want to make sure that we plan and address it. So, am I doing too much cardio? If you're not recovering and you're doing a lot of cardio, probably. Sorry, dudes. At the end of the day, you have to remember what your main goal is. Keep the main thing the main thing. If you are trying to be a physique athlete, you should not be overly concerned with how much cardio you're doing, all right? Especially if you're in an off season, okay? At that point, you can keep cardio pretty minimal and still make progress, right? Because we want all of those satellite cells to be type 2. Those are our bigger cells, right? We want them to be strength-based or anaerobically based. And so if we're doing a lot of cardio, we might be facilitating that some of those are getting used as type 1 muscle fibers, right? Body's gonna adapt to the stimuluses that we give to it. Sweet, right? So, I don't think that you need to be doing a lot of cardio in the off season. In fact, a lot of times it can be counterproductive, again, because it's going to come in and negatively impact your recovery, okay? What about when we need to be doing cardio? What about when we're trying to diet, when we're trying to do all those things? Well, now, what kind of cardio are we doing, right? I'm not necessarily against HIIT cardio. I'm not necessarily for HIIT cardio. I think everything has a place. Everything has, its validity in and of itself. So, if your intent is to stay, cardiovascularly adapted, and to do it on a very small amount of time, I think HIIT cardio is great. Awesome. Now, again, you have to make sure that you are recovering from it, and that can be a very difficult thing, but as long as you're recovering from it, no problem there. I typically don't prescribe more than, maybe 2, maximum 3 HIIT cardio sessions per week. I don't like people doing more than that. Again, I find that it's very hard to recover from. Not only is recovery down, that also will affect your training, but it can also affect other things like cortisol, right? Cortisol indicative of a good workout, but too much cortisol over too much time can start creating issues. So I keep HIIT cardio pretty minimal at most. I don't utilize a ton of it. I don't think it's something you need to utilize a lot of, right? Now, as I go through prep, I drop HIIT cardio down and get rid of it and utilize more steady state. And again, this becomes all about recovery. Reoccurring theme here, right? So if you're not recovering, nothing else matters, right? when you're dieting and you are in that prep phase or that fat loss phase, it's not just about getting rid of the body fat. And so I think that's what we always focus on, say body fat, body fat, body fat. But we don't really necessarily think too much about keeping the muscle, right? And so keeping muscle also very, very important, especially because of the fact that it is what we like to call metabolically active tissue. So what that means is if I have more lean muscle mass, if I sit in bed and do nothing all day, I burn more calories than somebody at the exact same height, weight, stature, blah, 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 that has less lean muscle mass and more fat mass. So yes, that is important. We also want to focus on keeping muscle. Again, if we're not recovering, we're not rebuilding. If we're breaking down more muscle tissue than we're rebuilding, we're losing muscle. And that's not crazy to think is going to happen during a fat loss phase. In fact, for most of us, if we're getting on stage, we are going to lose muscle during that process. That is the nitty-gritty truth of it. But what can we do to minimize the amount of muscle that we're losing, okay? One, definitely taking our time dieting helps, for sure. But the other big one is making sure that we're managing cardio properly. Now, it's pretty damn easy to recover from steady state cardio. Now, there are some other things that can happen with that. Maybe we start getting tight. If like all we're doing is incline treadmill, like maybe our calves start getting really tight and that starts fucking up some other stuff. You know, if all we're doing is stairs, and I'm not a big fan of stairs, guys. Let me just be very upfront about that. I feel like even for a steady state cardio, it's very, very hard to do, right? It definitely is you're gonna feel it the next day, more often than not. It's going to impact your recovery. It's not quite the same. So I feel like the intensity level of your steady state cardio also matters, right? So where do I like to be? I like to be right around the anaerobic threshold. Fucking great, Steven, that helps me out a lot. I got a simple way. So talk test has been shown to be really, really good about being indicator for anaerobic threshold and intensity. So where I like everybody to be, if I were to ask you if you could hold a conversation, you'd be like, you know what, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. That's typically a pretty good place to be. So that's where I like to do my cardio at. That's where I like my people to do their cardio at. It's just easier to recover from. It's right before the point where fats are the majority, like fat is the majority of the energy that's being put towards this activity, and to where that starts going down and carbs start going up. Which means you can do it forever. No, but you can do it for extended periods of time and be just fine. If you can do it for more than 15-20 minutes, you're typically pretty good. Thumbs up, baller, right? Apart from muscular fatigue, right? So sometimes you're just not conditioned for those longer cardio sessions. So those are the things to think about. First and foremost, too much cardio, wrong kind of cardio. Think about where you're at, okay? Are you in an off season? Are you in an on season, right? And then what are your long-term goals? If you're in an off season, you probably don't want to be doing a ton of cardio. You want to be paying more attention to your lifting, at least if you're a physique athlete, and making sure that your recovery is good, that you're fueling the exercise and recovery enough, right? Now, if you're in a dieting phase, you want to make sure that you're losing body fat, but you also want to make sure that you're doing it at a good rate to get to where you need to be on time, and preserving as much muscle as you can throughout that process. So, as always, the answers to the question, guys, is it depends, but hopefully this gets you thinking about some of the things that it depends on. So, that's it for me, guys. I gotta get ready. I got a trip going to Pittsburgh for North Americans. Gotta get some national love, and got a new camera. I'm gonna be getting some vlog footage, so I'll be putting up a vlog video coming up after we're done. So hopefully you guys enjoy that as well. But until next time, guys.